17 days till the NFL season kicks off, and we have a bunch of videos that are coming out. Like, first off, the 49ers have decided to release Josh Rosen. Now, Josh Rosen, in his career, it's been all over the place. He's been cut multiple times, traded, and now he's cut off his fourth team, kind of. Let me explain. He was on the Arizona Cardinals, who traded him to the Miami Dolphins, who cut him. He signed with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who released him off the practice squad. Then he signed to the 49ers practice squad. He was released off the 49ers practice squad. So now you have to get to the point of, is he done being a football player, and should he go into something else? And when I think about it, I'm like, half of me says, yeah, because of the success rate he's had, which is very little. And the other half of me says, you could give him another shot, because he wasn't given a fair chance in Arizona or in Miami. But when he came out of college, he went to UCLA. There was 6 teams that went and picked someone else. And he said on that draft night, those teams will make a mistake. And yet, they've shown they haven't made a mistake. Clearly. It's very clear that they haven't made any mistake. Because he's just not performed well. And that is because he was like Mitchell Trubisky. Played 1 year in college and then left. It doesn't work. You don't have the system down. You don't know what it's going to be like with other coaches. He's already had more coaches in his NFL career than he has throughout his high school and college careers. That's a fact. It's just where it is. So half of me says yes, he should be done. He should just call it quits and go do something else. And the other half of me says, no, he's got to figure out how to do this. Give him another chance. So I'm 50-50. Speaking of 50-50, Aaron Rodgers was talking about what was the percentage of him retiring. And he said it was about 50-50. As I said before, what the Packers had to do and what they did do was went to Aaron and said, look, we know you don't like us right now. Here's what we're willing to do. We're willing to put an agreement in your contract. So next year, if you want to be traded, you can be traded, but you won't have any saying where you go. But the following year, you would. You'd be an unrestricted free agent, which is what basically I said that they should do. And it's like, why does no one else think about this? Oh, right, they did, but everyone else decided not to speak on it. I was the one saying, you know what, this makes sense. Let's do this. It made sense, and that's what happened. Next year, he'll have the ability to be traded if he wants to, if he still wants to get out. And if he doesn't, he can wait that last year and go wherever he wants to go. A.J. Brown, the wide receiver for the Tennessee Titans, who had a knee injury, is expected to play week 1. Which is good news, because they do need to keep their receivers around, especially with now Julio Jones. You want to keep the best receivers you have on the field as much as you can. Even if he's not 100%, you know he's better than nothing. It's the same thing with Amari Cooper for the Cowboys. If Amari Cooper is 75%, 80%, and he's on the field, he's way better than players who are nearly 100%. That's just the fact. That's how good he is as a player. Same thing goes with A.J. Brown. If you have him 75, 80% against another guy who's 100%, A.J.'s going to be better. You know that. You just got to keep him on the field. He doesn't have to be throwing the ball 100 times per game, but you have to find a way to make sure he's on the field so he's at least poses as a threat against the opposing team. Speaking of someone who doesn't pose as a threat, Tim Tebow was released by the Jacksonville Jaguars. This happened after the 2 blocks that went viral that were just terrible. They were awful blocks. First block was, it's basically an inside zone. The tight end has to pull from one side of the line to the other. So Tebow is on the left. He has to pull all the way to the right and block the defensive end. It's not just playing receiver at tight end. That's not how this works. You have to block. So he goes and pulls. Now, granted, he's going against a defensive end who has done this a lot longer. His technique is more fitted towards him because he's done this forever. He knows what his technique is. But when Tebow goes to block him, he kind of just throws his shoulder into him, so he just rolls off him. And it was fine. The guy gained some yards, but it was not what you wanted. So he just kind of rolled off him and then kind of landed into the lap of his offensive lineman. And then the next play, when he has to block him and he's not going anywhere, he's not having to shift to the other side of the line, he just has to stand there. He just has to go at him. He goes too far one way and then just gets, pushed off the screen. And it didn't work. Against a guy who has been on the practice squad most of his career. So that's the position that the Jags were put in. When you make that kind of decision to move a guy, it doesn't work, usually. And it's sad, and Tim Tebow, he's a nice guy, but it never worked. It wasn't going to work. The fact that he's 33 years old, the fact that teams had tried to have him change positions and he wouldn't, but now he's like, oh, I'll just change position now at 33. No, it doesn't work. You don't have the skill or technique to do this because you haven't done it long enough. You've done it for a month or 2. That's not going to help anyone. Speaking about releases, the Cowboys had to release 5 players, move back to 85, and tomorrow they released 5 more guys to move back to 80. But the 5 guys that the Cowboys released were linebacker Anthony Hines, cornerback Kyron Brown, wide receiver Brendan Eagles, and that's 3. To explain this, if you release somebody, you can put them on the practice squad. They just have to wait 2 days, and they can be put on the practice squad. But the Cowboys had placed cornerback Reggie Robinson and fullback Shewo Olanalua on the injured reserve. Now, it's kind of good for Reggie Robinson. He wasn't most likely going to make the team. With how good Maurice Kennedy's been in practice and in games, he's led the team in practice with interceptions. He has. Him and Trayvon Diggs are like neck and neck. And so he's made a play for this roster. Reggie was moved from corner, when he got drafted, he was drafted as a corner, moved to safety, moved back to corner, moved back to safety, moved back to corner. It's not good for a young player's development. So, and we thought he was doing well because he was making some plays, but he's still raw. And he actually did get hurt in the game against Arizona, who he had a turf toe injury. And he's like, I can try, but I don't have really anything left. And so that was it for Reggie Robinson for the year. The more saddened one was fullback Shewo Olanalua, who had a great minicamp, a great OTAs, started pretty well in the preseason, and then got hurt with the neck injury, and that ended his season. And he showed that he could be a good fullback. That leaves, though, now that Olanalua is on the IR, that leaves Nick Ralston, a young rookie undrafted player, with a chance to be a fullback for the Cowboys. And there's a chance this happens because he looked pretty good. suggesting his first action was against the Houston Texans, which we will talk about in a later video. He played fairly well. I was pleased by his first impressions. I want to see more of him and see what else he can do. The Saints also Shaywo Alonolu and Reggie Robinson, due to the fact they went on the 53-man roster for one day, they can't come back off IR. So they are done for the year. Moving on to the Saints. The Saints have signed wide receiver Kevin White, and Kevin White was a good player, just got hurt a lot, played for the Chicago Bears, got hurt a lot. That's just the way it was. But he will have a chance with no Michael Thomas on the field. Seahawks and Jamal Adams agreed to a 4-year, $70 million contract extension. The Seahawks said, we're willing to make him the highest paid safety, but we're not willing to make him the highest paid player. Makes sense. The Cowboys, in a shocking turn of events, signed a kicker, Liam Hairu, who played again very well against the Houston Texans, which we'll talk about. The former kicking duties were in the early part of the preseason were done by Hunter Nicewander, who has a strong leg, just didn't do good in the kicking part of it. In this move, the Cowboys had to waive Hunter Nicewander, who was hurt. He was hurt, and he reverted to IR as well, so he's now done for the year. But a good start for Hairu LaRue.